The moment the word no left my mouth, the air shifted. My mom blinked like she didn't understand. My dad's smile faded into a grim line. You can't be serious, she said, voice cracking with disbelief. He's your brother. I am serious, I replied. My hands were trembling under the table, but I kept my voice calm. I have boundaries now. And I'm not a backup plan. My father leaned forward, voice low and sharp. After everything we've done for you, and there it was, the unspoken deal they thought we had. They gave me praise, attention, pride, and in return, I owed them my life, the price of loyalty. I walked out that night, not with slamming doors or angry shouting, just quiet, final steps. And that, apparently, made me the enemy. Over the next few weeks, my family turned cold in a way I hadn't known they could. My mom blocked me. My dad didn't respond to my birthday message. Ethan posted cryptic status updates online, things like, some people only care about you when it's convenient. Ryan unfollowed me completely. Every part of me screamed to fix it. To chase them down, to explain, to apologize, even though I'd done nothing wrong, but I didn't because deep down, I knew, if I gave in now, I'd never stop giving in. A childhood rewritten. Their silence gave me time to think. Too much time. I started replaying memories I'd long buried beneath the golden child label, the way I used to overhear my mom yelling at Ethan for being nothing like Lila. The way Ryan once sobbed in his room after a report card, only for my dad to say, why can't you be more like your sister? The praise they gave me wasn't love. It was a weapon. A wedge they drove between me and my siblings, and I, blindly, earnestly, played my role, thinking I was lucky to be the favorite, but now I saw the full picture. I wasn't lucky. I was groomed to serve. A betrayal runs deep. A few months after the last dinner, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Ryan. Hey, he said, hesitating. Look, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I need to tell you something. I sat up. What's going on? He sighed. Mom and Dad are telling people you kicked Ethan out. That you threw him on the street. That you're heartless. My stomach twisted. What? I whispered. They said you changed after your promotion. That you think you're better than us now. They told Aunt Jo you've cut ties with the family. I felt like I couldn't breathe, but that's not true. I began. I know, Ryan said. That's why I'm calling. I think they're trying to isolate you. I was stunned. Ryan, the quiet one, the one who'd always kept his head down, was defending me. I didn't expect this from you, I said honestly. I didn't either, he replied. But I've been thinking about everything. I used to hate you for being the favorite, but now I get it. It wasn't your fault. They just used you. His words hit me like a wave. For the first time in months, I cried again. Not out of sadness, but because someone finally saw me. A glimpse of freedom. After that call, Ryan and I started talking more. He told me about the pressure he'd felt. The comparisons. The resentment he held toward me, not because of who I was, but because of how our parents twisted things. They made me feel small, he said. Like I was always failing some invisible test. He said Ethan had always played the victim, and that Mom and Dad coddled him, even when he messed up repeatedly. Fights, jobs lost, debts, it didn't matter. They always bailed him out. They needed you to be perfect so they had something to compare us to, Ryan said. You were the stick they beat us with. And when I stopped cooperating, the illusion shattered. The ultimatum. Then came the email, subject line, we need to talk. From Mom. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a carefully crafted guilt trip. She wrote about missing her daughter, about how families fight but come back together. She said Ethan was finally stable, and it was all thanks to their strength as a unit. Then came the twist. They were updating their will. She wanted me to sign over a portion of the family property to Ethan. It's only fair, she wrote. You've always had so many opportunities. Ethan needs this to build his future. I laughed, out loud. It was the bitterest laugh of my life. Fair? Fair would have been them respecting my time, my life, my boundaries. Not using me like a lifeline and then discarding me when I dared to say no. When the golden child leaves, I didn't respond to the email. Instead, I started therapy. I needed to understand why their rejection cut so deep. Why their love had been my oxygen for so long. And slowly, through tears and painful realizations, I began to see that being the golden child wasn't about love. It was about control. My therapist helped me trace patterns. How every yes I gave reinforced their power. How every sacrifice I made wasn't appreciated, just expected. And how saying no wasn't betrayal. It was survival. One night, I wrote a letter I never sent. To my parents. You loved the version of me that served you. The obedient daughter. The fixer. The peacekeeper. But you never tried to know me beyond that. You praised me when I bent for you. You punished me when I stood up for myself. That's not love. That's manipulation. The quiet rebuild. With distance came clarity. And with clarity, Came peace. I began rebuilding my life without them in it. I traveled for the first time in years. I started dating again, cautiously, carefully. I poured my heart into my job. But this time, not for validation, just for me and Ryan? He visited me one weekend. We cooked dinner together. Watched old movies. Laughed more than we had in years. He said something that stuck with me: "You're not the golden child anymore. You're just Lila. And I like her better." The final goodbye, I wish I could say my parents came around. That they saw the light? Apologized, welcomed me back with real love, but life isn't a fairy tale. They stuck to their version of events. Told everyone I abandoned them. Wrote me out of their legacy, and that hurt. It still does sometimes, but now, I understand something. I didn't before. Being loved for what you give is not the same as being loved for who you are. I used to believe I was lucky. Blessed, even. While my friends groaned about overbearing parents, endless comparisons, or feeling invisible, I was the opposite. I was the favorite. The perfect daughter. The golden child. My name is Lila. I'm the eldest of 3 siblings, 2 younger brothers, Ethan and Ryan. Growing up, my parents constantly reminded me that I was the example. The achiever. The one they could count on. "You've always been so mature," my mom would say, ruffling my hair with a smile. "We never have to worry about you," my dad would add during dinners, his tone half praise, half pressure, and I believed them. I worked hard in school, stayed away from trouble, helped around the house without being asked, and played mediator every time Ethan and Ryan fought. I was the emotional glue, the golden child who held everything together, but I didn't realize that being the golden child wasn't love, it was leverage. The cost of being the favorite started small. "Lila, can you help Ethan with his science project? He's struggling." "Lila, Ryan got into trouble again. Can you talk to him? He listens to you." "Lila, your dad and I are going out. Watch the boys, okay?" I was 13 the first time I missed a friend's birthday party because I was needed at home. 15 when I started skipping club meetings to tutor Ethan. 17 when I gave up my summer job because my mom said she needed help managing the boys. At first, I didn't mind. I wanted to be helpful. I wanted to make them proud, but deep down, something was shifting. I didn't feel golden. I felt used. Still, I kept saying yes, because every time I did, I got their love. Their approval. Their praise. It was addictive, the warmth of their smiles, the way they bragged about me to relatives, until one day, I said no the first time. I said no. I was 26 when it happened. I had just landed a promotion at my job, a huge one. I was finally managing my own department, and I was busier than ever. Exhausted, proud, but finally starting to live for myself. Then came the call: "Lila, Ethan's in a mess." My mother's voice was tight, accusatory. "He broke up with that girl, and he's spiraling. He needs you." I sighed. I had just come home from a 12-hour workday. My inbox was a disaster, and I had a project deadline looming. "Mom, I can't tonight." "I'm sorry. I really can't." Silence, cold, sharp silence. "You're too busy for your family now," she snapped. I tried to explain, to make her understand. But she didn't want to understand. She wanted obedience. She wanted the golden child who never said no. That night was the beginning of the unraveling. When praise turns to punishment over the next few days, I noticed the change. Texts from my mom became curt. My dad didn't return my calls. Ethan sent me a long, angry message telling me I'd abandoned him. Ryan, usually neutral, simply stopped talking to me altogether. It was like I'd flipped a switch. One no, and the love disappeared. The warmth turned cold. I told myself it would blow over, but then came Sunday dinner. Every week, we had a tradition, a family dinner at my parents' house. I didn't want to go. I was still nursing the sting of their silence. But I showed up, trying to be the bigger person. A big mistake. As soon as I walked in, I felt it. The tension. The way no one got up to hug me. The way my mom barely looked at me while setting the table. Dinner was even worse. They talked around me, not to me. When I mentioned my promotion, my dad waved it off like it was nothing. When I asked Ryan how he was doing, he mumbled, "Fine," without looking up. Then Ethan, ever the dramatist, leaned back in his chair and said loudly, "Must be nice to only care about your job. Some of us don't have the luxury to be selfish." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He smiled, smug, cruel. "I mean, you used to be there for this family. What happened?" No one stopped him. No one defended me. My mother looked away, lips tight. That's when I realized, they didn't want me. They wanted what I could do for them. Cracks in the pedestal. After that dinner, I stopped going. I tried to set boundaries. Not harshly, just honestly. I told them I couldn't always drop everything anymore. That I loved them, but I needed space. That didn't go over well. They called me selfish. Said I was changing. Accused me of being too good for them. Now it broke my heart. I spent so long trying to be what they wanted, their helper, their peacemaker, their shining example. I thought they loved me for who I was, but now I saw it clearly, they loved me for what I gave them. And the moment I stopped giving, I became the villain. The manipulation gets worse. A few weeks later, I got a call from my aunt, my mom's sister, Lila. Are you okay? Your mom said you were having some sort of mental breakdown. That you're isolating yourself. My stomach dropped. What? I hadn't said anything to anyone outside the family. But now, apparently, my mother was spreading stories, painting me as unstable, dramatic, ungrateful. I was stunned, but it didn't stop there. At my cousin's baby shower, several relatives avoided me. One pulled me aside and whispered, I don't know what happened, but you should really forgive your family. Life's too short. I felt like I was drowning. They weren't just upset. They were actively turning people against me. Why? Because I said no. Because I dared to put myself first. Once, the turning point. One evening, I got home from work and just sat on my couch. The silence felt heavier than usual. My phone hadn't buzzed all day, no texts from my parents, no sarcastic jabs from Ethan, no guilt trips from Ryan, just silence. And for the first time in my life, I realized that might be okay, that maybe I didn't need to be their emotional crutch. That maybe being the golden child wasn't a gift, it was a trap. A mask I wore to earn love that should have been unconditional. I cried that night, not because I missed them, but because I missed who I used to be before I gave everything to them. One final test. Just when I thought the storm had passed, the final blow came. My parents asked to meet. We want to make things right, my dad said over the phone. Let's talk. Sunday dinner. Part of me hoped this was it. The breakthrough. Maybe they were ready to understand me. I showed up, cautiously hopeful. At first, it was warm. They smiled. My mom even hugged me. They asked about my job. Complimented my dress, and then came the ask. Ethan needs a place to stay, my mom said, her eyes pleading. Just for a while. He's having a hard time. You have that extra room, right? There it was. The trap. The test. I looked at them, their hopeful faces, and felt the weight of years of sacrifice pressing down on me again. But this time, I stood up straight. I'm sorry, I said softly. But no. I never thought the day would come when I'd feel completely severed from my family, not out of hate, but out of peace, but it did. And it didn't happen with a fight. It happened with silence. A sudden funeral 6 months after the email about the will, I got a call from Ryan again, his voice quiet, but urgent. Lila, he said, Grandma passed away. I froze. My father's mother had been one of the few in our family who truly loved me unconditionally. She didn't care about my report cards or whether I was the peacemaker. She just loved me. She asked for you at the end, Ryan added. She kept asking why you hadn't come to visit. My throat tightened with guilt. I'd pulled away from everyone to protect myself, and in doing so, I'd missed my chance to say goodbye to the only relative who'd seen me clearly. I'm going to the funeral, Ryan said. You should come. But, brace yourself. The family's talking. The return. I didn't want to go, but I knew if I didn't, I'd regret it forever. So I went. Quietly. Dressed in black. Hair tied back. No makeup. Just a woman stripped of her old role, standing in the shadow of a family that once adored her. When I walked into the chapel, heads turned, some stared in surprise. Others in disdain. I caught whispers, she has the nerve to show up now. She abandoned her family. Unbelievable, but I didn't shrink. I walked straight down the aisle and sat beside Ryan, who gave my hand a comforting squeeze. Our parents. They were seated in the front row and never once turned around. The will reading. A week after the funeral, I received a letter from a lawyer. My grandmother had left something for me. A small lake cabin outside the city. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet retreat she used to escape to when things got overwhelming. There was a handwritten note attached, to my Lila. You've always given. Now take this space and make it yours. Rest. Heal. You don't owe anyone anything anymore. I read those words over and over, tears soaking the page. For the first time, someone in my family had acknowledged it. The truth. The cost. The burden. And she gave me exactly what I'd never been allowed, freedom. The smear campaign. 2 days later, my mother called. The first time in over a year. You should have declined that property, she said coldly. It wasn't fair to Ethan. He needed that cabin more than you. I nearly laughed. Not even grief had softened her entitlement. Grandma chose me, I said. This is the first time anyone in this family gave me something without expecting something in return. Don't be dramatic, she snapped. You're still part of this family. No, I interrupted. Not anymore. I'm done being useful. I'm done being yours. She hung up, and that was the last time we ever spoke. The cabin and the rebirth. The first time I visited the cabin, it was snowing. I stepped inside and was instantly wrapped in the quietest kind of comfort, soft creaking floors, the faint scent of cedar, shelves lined with old books and puzzles grandma must have loved. It wasn't just a space. It was a new beginning. I spent weekends there. Then weeks. Eventually, I moved in fully. I worked remotely, planted a garden, adopted a stray cat. The silence that once terrified me became sacred. I started writing, journaling, mostly, about my family, my grief, my growth. One entry stood out to me. I wrote it during a stormy night, curled up on the porch. I used to think being loved meant being needed. But real love doesn't come with strings. It doesn't come with ultimatums. Real love sees you even when you say no. An unexpected letter. A year passed, then, one crisp morning, I found an envelope in my mailbox, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was Ethan. Lila, I don't know if this will ever reach you, or if you'll care. But I'm sorry. For everything. I was jealous of you. I let mom and dad turn me into a victim because it was easier than facing myself. I know I said horrible things. I know I blamed you. But I see now. You didn't abandon us, you escaped. I'm trying to get better. I just wanted you to know that. Ethan. I didn't cry. I didn't respond, but for the first time, I hoped maybe, just maybe, he'd start his own healing, too. Who I am now. People always assume being the favorite is a blessing, but what they don't see is the cost, the pressure, the manipulation, the invisibility. They don't see the way your own voice gets buried under obligation. How love becomes a performance. How saying no becomes an act of war. But now, I'm not the golden child. I'm not the fixer. I'm not the obedient daughter. I'm Lila. A woman who walked away, and finally found herself. Final words to my audience, narrator voiceover style. If you're watching this and you've always felt like the good child, the one who never caused trouble, who always cleaned up the messes, who kept the peace, I want you to ask yourself something. What would happen if you said no? If that question terrifies you, you're not alone. But maybe, just maybe, yet means it's time to stop earning love that should have been freely given. Time to stop carrying people who never learned to stand on their own. Time to let go of being their golden child, so you can finally become yourself. And if that means losing them, then maybe they were never really yours to begin with.